Why don't you just introduce yourself to start us off then?
Okay, thank you for having me again. My name is Olalekan Oshunkoya. I am the Executive Director of Citizens Commonwealth International from Nigeria. Our organization is a citizen action organization. We work with young people at the intersection of technology, social justice, social change, and entrepreneurship, as well as leadership. So we support young people's development as leaders and active citizens.
And you?
And I'm Bex Perry. I'm the Amplify Programme Manager for the National Youth Agency, and Amplify is an online youth work platform created by young people for young people.
So clearly digital youth work really came into its own during the pandemic. Why do you think it's such an important area for growth in the future?
Digital youth work's always been there. From back when Sega Mega Drives were a thing, they were available to be in youth centres. I think what the pandemic done was accelerate everyone's, not just youth workers, everyone's ability to do more online. But I think now, more than ever, it's important to think about digital youth work as one. I think the pandemic put us in a position where it made people feel like this is what we have to do. And actually, from having conversations, especially with some of our amazing partners at YouthLink in Scotland, we need to disconnect the conversation about the pandemic and digital because of the feelings and the connotations that's associated with the two. The tech curve is going up and up and up through the roof, and if we don't get on the tech train and understand more about what digital developments are coming along, we're going to miss the opportunity to really get involved in it and deliver quality youth work.
Technology is part of our life already. That's what we do on a daily basis. That's what we are using. And now we want to have young people, we want to reach them a lot more so we can invest more in the capabilities, that the additional opportunity that exists, because we have technology that we can use to reach more young people to advance the youth work that we do. And I think that that will do for us is to see technology as an enabler to scaling the work that we do and how we deliver the work. Whether, for example, you're trying to, because youth work is very broad, there's a lot going on there, but you just want to know that it doesn't matter whether you're trying to do a counseling session for a young person or you're trying to do digital skills or online training or whatever you want to do that. Technology exists as an enabler to make that possible, and that's why investment, and it's also like there's the capabilities that we have now to be able to do that. I mean, you can do Zoom classes very easily and conveniently because they are actually already doing that in school. So when you tell them to speak to a counselor over a Zoom, they are open to do that because they already did add classes with their friends already on Zoom anyway. So it's easier for young people to connect with technology. They embrace it even faster than the rest of us do. So it's like to see that digital youth work has come to stay because we're in a time where technology is everything and it's conveniently used across every area of our lives. So we should be able to use that for advancing youth work in itself.
I think digital youth work enables communities to grow at a faster pace than they would do in the real world, in the non-digital world. Through Amplify, young people have been able to connect from as far up as Scotland, where you guys are, down to Southampton. And we've been able to connect young people with the same kind of lived experiences that would never have met each other otherwise. So I think the possibilities of digital youth work are really, really exciting. And actually looking what's going on in the tech sector right now with AR, VR, AI, it's a really important time for us to have our ear to the ground and stay in touch with it because it will just keep moving forward.
Making the most of the technology is on the assumption that the technology will always work, but sometimes it doesn't. And then when it does, the human error is there. You just cannot guarantee how that's going to work. But I think the other one is also when you're working with young people, there's an assumption that you have to think about privacy. You have to think about security. You have to think about consent, and some of those things, it takes a different version, and they may not always be ready for it. I mean, I'm speaking from my point of view as in Nigeria, for example, where you will require digital devices or to be able to deliver youth work in certain contexts. For example, if you want to work with young people and you need the parents to be available to give their consent to it and all of that, and the parents are not even around or are not available to even operate the devices anyways. You want to allow the parent to log into YouTube so that they can do something, but they don't understand the skills, they don't have the skill to do so. So how do you navigate that, then it's okay. A child will just sign up on their own and then they do it. That's like a challenge because you don't really have the consent of the parent to actually use the service because they don't even know what they're doing. So that they're not educated that much. So the children will just trusting the child interest. And that is one of the reasons why you have a very low adoption of technology in that context, because government and institutions are concerned about some of this limitation.
Okay, so what do you both think that youth work will look like in like 5 years' time?
In 5 years, I mean, what I will begin to think about the opportunity that young people that do not have access, because if you think about youth work in Nigeria, it's not like in terms of access to services, it's very basic. There's no youth centers, so they don't have all of this already in physical spaces when you don't have digital youth work. So now that you have digital youth work, it means that they can have access to some of these services because they have been enabled by technology to have access to it. So basically you can begin to expand options. So in 5 years, I'm looking at someone that needs to speak to a counselor, and that's dealing with addiction or that's struggling with going to school. And then they don't really have a counseling center in their school. So, but then there is an online space that they can come and then they can speak to someone that is not the parent, that is not the pastor, that is not the, and then they can just freely speak about what they're going through and then what they did. And then they can do that digitally, like through their mobile phone, or by just signing up with the USSID, USSD code, and then they can receive support that can allow them to process what they're going through, and then to be able to make better choices with themselves and then think about better outcomes. And this is because they have never really had the opportunity to do so in person. So if they're able to do that, so I think in Nigeria in 5 years is like the potential that technology will now enable. Everybody has a mobile phone. Everybody now can access the technology. So it means that we can leverage it, because the end of the session this morning, that's what was going to my mind, was the next stage of this thing. I mean, do we are able to actually provide mass scale of access, because now you have a tool, an enabler that can make it possible. So in 5 years, I would say delivering services to young people that do not have access to anything at all, not even like a replacement of it, because they didn't even have anything at all. So just give them what they don't have by using technology to deliver it for them.
I love that, because that's ultimately saying digital youth work reaches the people it needs to, doesn't it? And I think that that's completely on the same page. That's where we'd like Amplify to be, that it's actually reaching those young people that haven't currently got access to face-to-face youth work and youth support. Yeah. I think from like a different perspective in terms of the kind of conversations we'll be having in 5 years' time about digital youth work, I think there's potential that should VR metaverse spaces develop to become more real life-like, that the avatars develop, I think that we'll probably be experiencing more work in the metaverse. I don't know if we're going to necessarily be in it, but I think that what we're seeing right now would be quite incredibly enhanced in 5 years' time, looking at what's literally happened over the last couple of years. I don't think the fear factor is going to be any different. Yeah. But hopefully by then we've got some really good guidance to support our sector colleagues, and certainly for myself, I would have learnt from all of the amazing colleagues, not only locally but nationally and globally, who are delivering amazing youth work and digital youth work. Like I've mentioned earlier, YouthLink Scotland. In Europe, they're doing some incredible work. The work of Ola and your team, like I hope in 5 years' time, from our perspective, that I would have got around to see you all a bit more and learn from you and support digital youth work being embraced.
So thank you for joining me today. It's been lovely chatting to you.
Thank you for having us.
And enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.